Okay, this is going to be a very quick recap of the implementation of the validation framework for CreditEase. Okay, so just to recap again, the whole validation framework, the whole idea behind it is to allow CreditEase to build custom rules around the validation of data either on a front end, back end, or actually a mix of both. So what we've got is we've got the idea of a container, which is where we basically define the version, the name, all sort of metadata around the actual rule set. Then we've got the schema rules and the data rules. Those are the two types of rules or rule sets that we can define. Schema rules are generally rules applied onto the UI side of stuff. Data rules normally rules applied to the back end. Important to know that both can be either implemented on the front end or on the back end side. As I mentioned, different type of rules, they've both got definitions. Definitions are where we basically say that field A, B, and C must be of length this, or they must be filled in. The same on this side. Rule A, B, and C, if it's filled in, must have a combined total of 10, etc., etc. And then we've got an execution level on these rule sets or definitions. This meaning that we can say schema rule needs to be executed front end, data rules needs to be executed front end or back end, or both front end or back end. Architecture point of view, same architecture that we've been implementing currently. We've got the UI side controllers and models, which calls our dispatcher. Dispatcher then does our validation, logic matching, the caching mechanism, but it's not applicable as yet. And then data coming back through to the UI. The most important part apart from the flow is then obviously the database. We've got a validation schema where everything lives in. In there we've got our container. We've got the definition linking to a type and a tier. Tier is basically where our execution happens, server or UI side. Our type is saying it's a schema or it's a data. Definition links to a rule set. Rule set is where we actually store the actual rules on fields. These fields or these values are actually called rule keys, and they actually have data types. Data types is a string, integer, all those standard data types. On the rule set, we have a limitation. Limitation meaning what is the actual limitation or the rule being applied, saying that field A cannot equal to field B bigger than, and that's what limitation is, bigger than, smaller than, equals, those normal sort of logics. And then our operators are ands and ors. For now, that's what it is. You can obviously then go into the database and then add whatever you need to add onto it. So if I just need to show what the actual data then looks like, a container looks, simple data looks like that. Our data types, int, string, definitions, basically says that we're using container 1 with a type of 3 which is merged. A tier is running basically on 1, which I think out of my head is UI, and it's actually active. Limitation, these are limitations, equals, smaller than, equals, bigger than, equals, bigger than, contains. Operators, ands and ors, rule keys. So we've got a rule key in this named username, and one called password of data types string, and that belongs to a rule set. So this rule set basically says that we're running definition 1. The rule key linked to it is first name, rule key linked to their surname. limitation is 11, which is not equals to data type is string, value is empty string. So it's saying that first name not equals to empty string, and I think that's an and, surname not equals to an empty string, then the rule is valid, or the data is valid. Okay, our tiers, server and UI, and then the types, schema data, then merge type of merge, something that I was sort of playing with, but for now the only thing that's important here is schema and data. So that's what the actual data then thus far looks like. To come back to, yeah, so all of this of course sits behind our framework, which uses our dispatcher. So the methods that we've contained in our dispatcher is under validation slash and then the actual piece or the actual resource, which is container, definitions, tiers, data types, operators, limitations, types, rule key, rule set list, which is just a get, which gets you total set of rules, total rule set of rule sets that's linked to an actual definition, and then execute, which is the one that basically is responsible to actually execute or actually implement the rules that you've set up. So on this one, which is what is important to notice, that is if you pass through your container and the container basically set to execute UI side, it will actually bring back in your data element on a JSON, it will actually bring back your JavaScript that you need to pass through onto your UI code to actually execute. If it is an server executable, it is gonna it's gonna need you to pass as part of the body of the post a set of data that you need to get to validate it, and then on the response it will then actually just bring back success or an error. The data that you need to pass has to be in the following format of rule key, which is your field, pipe, the value, comma, field, pipe, value, comma. So you pass it through in that sort of order. Of course, if it's the last sort of key value pair in the body, then please do not put in a comma. You can just put in key, pipe, and value, and that's how you pass the data through, where it will then be executed on the server and validated. The execution way to actually call the dispatcher should actually be first get all your lookups. After you've got your lookups, then you can actually call the other methods. So I prefer to call them firstly tiers, then data types, then operators, then limitation types, and then I can actually use my container to create my container, and then I can create my definition, create my rule keys, and then create my rule sets. And once that's all done, I actually can use my execute. And then on the execution level, obviously, of course, there's this widget that needs to run on the front end. You need to include these two, the validation CSS and the validation JS, and then just call it simply by doing the display validation widget method. You actually would normally pass in the result that comes back from your API call. So that is actually then, in a nutshell, how you implement the validation framework for CreditEase.